Despite being considered to be an engineering marvel, Bitcoin is not private. No, it runs on a blockchain, and blockchain is a technological breakthrough, and it's meant to be private, but still that's not the case, and I'll tell you why. So, we are forced to use it in a way that it's not supposed to be used as. So, before we get into the nitty gritties of why that's the case, let's look at what blockchains are. So, let's say we have a transaction between two people. Person A wants to send something to person B. In this case, we'll talk about financial transactions. So, what he would do is he would go to the bank or a banking application in our case, and then he would send a transfer to the bank, and then the bank would send the transfer back to the person who he wants to send to. So basically it's the bank in this case that's authorizing the whole transaction from person A to person B. Person A sends the money and person B receives it. It's done. Now this expands to all of the bank's users. So in a way, everything is centralized with the bank. All transactions are approved by the bank and run by the bank at the bank servers, and it's the smartphones used by the bank's users that communicate this. Now comes the blockchain. So let's consider a similar situation where everybody wants to make financial transactions. Then the first thing is that in a blockchain, the centralized server system kind of fades away, and it gets distributed among the different users. So in a way there is no server, and in a way everybody is a server. So bits and pieces of information gets stored along all the people using it, and the way that it's connected is slightly different. So generally you had everyone connected to a central server, but in this case every person is connected to every other person in the network. So there is no need for a centralized system in this way. And say now person A wants to send money to person B. Now since you don't have a centralized system, how would you do that? Well, the solution is simple. What blockchains do is they look for information on different nodes or different persons or different users, and then they approve or reject a certain transaction based on what everybody thinks about that transaction. So this consensus mechanism which is created makes blockchains democratic and also quite sturdy in what they want to achieve. And blockchains are meant to be private, so nobody knows who the person is behind any of these transactions, and nobody knows who the nodes are, but everything is just supposed to work the way it is. And still there is always a catch. You see, a person using the blockchain has an address, which in the case of Bitcoin is his wallet address, and usually it's anonymous for that very reason, because privacy. But the institutions don't like this because they want to track you, they want to know how you're transacting, because they are institutions, that's what they do. So what's their solution? It's KYC. So they take your identification documents before enrolling you onto an exchange, and then that allows them to fingerprint you and your wallet address based on your ID. So now they know who you are and what you're doing on the blockchain. So this makes your address completely identifiable. So now they know who you are. And so the whole blockchain moves from anonymity slowly and steadily to complete transparency, where the institutions know what you're doing. Now, all cryptos also have a public ledger of the transactions made. So if say Bitcoin was released in some year 2012, 2013, and it's 2021 now, so all records of the past 7-8 years are available to see. Every transaction that's ever made is noted on this public ledger, and this public ledger is freely available on the internet. Just a Google search would be enough to reveal the whole public ledger record with the transactions, the amounts, and the wallet addresses on both ends. It looks something like this. You have one address, you have another address, and then the amount, and then you can go into further details to look into it. So since a customer has already been KYC'd and the address in this transaction is identifiable with a given person, then you'd know person A, you'd know person B, because you know their KYC documents and that they are linked to a certain address. Then you'd be able to fingerprint that transaction. So this makes every transaction 100% traceable. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, you are being followed and being watched. It's a little bit difficult because it needs more computation power, but it's 100% possible. So, you might say, if I'm not doing anything wrong, then, what's the problem? The government can, or the institutions can know what I'm transacting or what I'm doing. Well, you should be worried, and let me tell you why. So, why would you want to know them, how you're spending your money, where you're spending it, and who you do your transactions with? It's completely senseless to give away all of this freedom just for the convenience of using a technology for transferring money by blindly trusting it. So there is still another problem, and to understand this problem, let me give you a hypothetical scenario. Say person A wants to send 3 pieces of money, let's say $3 to person B. So then he just hands him cash. Now person B sends $2 out of those $3 he received to person C. Now person B's money source is anonymous to person C because he does not know where those $2 he's receiving came from, and neither does an institution or an exchange for that matter, because it does not matter to them. But then this won't be the case anymore. Say because everybody has been ID'd through their wallet address, and that every coin itself has a transaction ID where it was first seen, then what you could do is look at the ledger data for that coin, for the addresses that you have and the KYC documents, and then you could get rid of anonymity completely. You would know where a certain Bitcoin originated from, where it moved along its history, and where it ended up at the very end, and then where it's still moving even today. And everything is 100% fingerprintable. So if say an institution with enough money and enough power would be sitting on all of this data, then it would completely be able to figure out where money is moving and how it's moving. Zero anonymity. So what's the solution for us in this case? Well, there's nothing like cold hard cash. It's almost untraceable, and it's the best solution we've had since almost a century, or even more than a century. So in some cases, it's better to take 2 steps back. So stay informed, stay vigilant. Freedom and liberty are precious. Don't let this propaganda get to you. Don't buy into everything that you hear, and don't forget to smash the like button if you like this video, and subscribe to the channel